Hello, and welcome to the Gift of Failure Frequently Asked Questions, episode 8. Today, we're going to talk about portals. Okay, where to start with portals? Well, for those of you who have little kids and have not experienced the portal yet, let me just fill you in. Schools use software now to record grades. I happen to love my old grade book where I'd put my grades in pencil and you'd have the little columns. It was very sweet. But it takes a lot of time, and then you got to go in with a calculator and blah. It's a nightmare. So what we have now are these grading software programs. There are lots of them. There's a whole bunch of different ones. I'm not even gonna use a name because there's no reason to. There's so many different ones. Essentially, you go in and you enter in all your grades, and it's great because you can use categories and weight the categories, or you could just have a grade be the product of a whole bunch of points, and you could put in like a quiz here and a homework there, and have one be worth 10 points and one be worth 2 points. It's all fantastic. It saves us as teachers a lot of work. Now, some schools take that a step further where the teacher software, you can open it up on the other side to parents. And there's a portal that parents can use to log in and look to see everything from what a kid's grade is on a quiz or a test, find out what their attendance has been, whether or not they've been tardy or absent, find out, in some places you can find out what your kid ate for lunch because that's all part of the software as well. So, how I feel about those? Well, these started opening up, about 10 years ago. I think the first time I started using a portal, using software for grading was in like 2001, I think. And we hadn't opened the portal yet, but that increasingly started to happen over the next, 10 years or so. There are a lot of schools that have decided to open up the portal 24/7. Meaning you could go to your computer right now and check on your kids' grades. You could find out, what's been loaded into the computer today that maybe a teacher just graded today. Some schools have decided to open it up only twice a term, like for example during the midterm and then again during the final grading period. Some schools have decided not to open the portal at all. Some schools do it for older kids but don't do it for younger kids. The dogs are just about to start fighting, so the growling in the corner, that's them. And this could get interesting. They're fighting over a toy. Yeah, we'll just keep going and see how this goes. So here's the problem with portals. The problem with portals, if you've read The Gift of Failure, or if you've read Dan Pink's Drive, or if you've read Edward Dici's Why We Do What We Do, The Science of Self-Motivation, if you've read the 40 years of research we have on extrinsic, meaning things that come from outside of us, extrinsic motivators, you know that any kind of most kinds of extrinsic motivators that come from outside of us, carrots and sticks, pay for grades, grades themselves, all of those things over the long term decrease motivation. So, as a teacher, that puts me in a really bad position because grades, points, scores, honors, all that kind of stuff, that's my currency, right? That's how I get kids to engage. And hang on one second. I'll be right back. Dogs are outside now. Sorry about that. So anything that is a sort of an extrinsic carrot or stick sort of thing is going to decrease motivation over the long term. I say it really clearly in the book. If you want to get your kid to not want to learn math, pay him for his math grades. There you go. Now, here's the thing though. So portals add an extra layer to this. Okay, so let's say you're checking into the portal all the time and your kid is checking into the portal all the time because, we're so obsessed with the points and the scores and the grades. A couple of things happen. Let's say it's just your kid checking on and you're not checking at all. It's just your kid. So your kid, sometimes this can be fantastic because your kid can check on the portal, find out what their grades are, check to make sure if any of the teachers made mistakes because frankly, teachers make mistakes. And then the kid can go to the teacher and say, you know what? I didn't think I got a 67 on this test. I thought I got a 77. And the teacher could say, look at that. I hit the wrong key. I happen to think that's fantastic. I think that helps kids take ownership of their grades. It allows kids to go and be proactive and self-advocate. Fantastic. And both of my kids have had some exposure to the portal. The older one used it all throughout high school, and it was a great tool for him. He actually checked it quite a bit. Some kids check it quite a bit and get obsessed. There are apps for the phone where you can, have a text come in if you get a grade, have a text come in if you get a grade lower than a certain percentage point. All of these things, unfortunately, put more and more emphasis on the extrinsic motivator, therefore increasing the focus on that thing, that point, that score, that grade, that whatever, and takes, honestly, some of the emphasis off of the actual learning, and may decrease motivation over the long term. But now let's add the parent portal side into it. Let's say it's not just your kid logging on. Now it's you, the parent, logging on 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day. And I joke about this at speaking engagements mainly because these aren't exaggerated numbers. This is what some parents are doing, checking in all day long. And the problem is that when parents check all day long, it goes to a really unhealthy place. The other thing is, the reason I know that parents are checking all day long is that from the school side, we can see how often you log in. We really can. And yeah, it becomes fairly obvious who's treating it as an unhealthy resource. Now, the other problem is that once the parents are checking that often, a lot of things happen. The kids know the parents are checking that often because the parents feel the need to talk about it all the time. The parent gets obsessed, and the teachers kind of get the signal that this parent is going to be a bit of a problem. Now, the other thing is that in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people who I talk to about the portal, it's really undermining relationships, because when you're so focused on this computer screen for all of your information, often that can lead to a decrease in communication. I was at a speaking event a little while ago, and while I was talking about the portal with the kids, I heard this kid laugh out in the audience. And he came up to me at the end, and he didn't even say anything. He just held out his phone. And when he held out his phone, I could see a text from his mother in all shouty caps saying, "What do you mean you got a 67 in weightlifting?" And the kid looked at me and he's like, "Look, my mom just texted me this, and now she's going to be all mad at me when she picks me up." So now this kid is like looking forward to the end of the day when his parent is going to come pick him up, or when he gets off the bus at the end of the day, and he knows his parent is already in shouty cap mode. And, the first thing I said to the kid, honestly, was, well, why are you getting a 67 in weightlifting? Because frankly, I don't think that has a lot to do with studying for a test. And he admitted that actually what this did come down to was some effort issues, but also he thought the grade was wrong, and in the end it turns out that was true. The 67 was incorrect. It wasn't even the right grade. There was a mistake that was made. So, but the problem is that now that kid's all primed for shouty cap in live, living color with his parent when the parent shows up at the end of the day. And that causes a lot of tension, and it causes this sort of crescendo moment, this moment when the kid comes to the car and the parent knows, the kid knows, and the kid knows, the parent knows, and it's like, and it explodes. And frankly, it's not the best way to start what can be the most communicative part of a kid and parent's day, which is the afternoon or the ride home in the car after school. Okay, now, here's the other thing that I'm hearing a lot from superintendents, from principals. The principals and the superintendents that I talk to about the portal, and sort of I ask them, I say very honestly, tell me what your thoughts are on the portal. Most of them say, especially in really high pressure systems, school systems, if there was any genie I wish I could put back in the bottle, it would be the portal. But once you've let that one out, you can't pull it back. In fact, a superintendent in a really high pressure school system in Northern California said this in front of a whole bunch of parents at the assembly where I was speaking, and a parent raised her hand and said, "Well, why did you open it then if it was going to be this problematic and you knew that it was causing problems around the country?" And the principal said, principal or superintendent, I can't remember which, said, "Because you pressured us to open it. The parents wanted the portal open." Now, at other schools, some schools are making it so that you don't have a choice, that you have to log on to that portal with your username and login and ID and all that stuff in order to get the permission forms you need at the beginning of the year. I wish schools wouldn't do this, because opting out of the portal shouldn't be something that's really hard to do. As it stands now, I have never ever logged on as a parent to the portal, but what I did for my kid when he was in high school was I said to the teachers specifically, I don't check the portal. I will not be logging on the portal. And you need to know that, because I need you to support me, support my kid in feeling the consequences of not handing stuff in. And also, if things really start to go down the toilet, I need for you to let me know, because I won't be checking the portal to find that out. So that's actually been great. The conversations I've had with teachers out of that communication have been lovely, because they've been able to say, okay, great. You want to give your kid more autonomy and let me hold them accountable? Fantastic. Thank you for making me part of this team. It's worked out really, really well so far. And like I said, to this point, I've never checked it as a parent. A lot of parents that I talk to on the road really wish they could back off, but they're really scared to, because they're afraid that teachers will think that they're not doing their job, that they're not being a responsible parent. And isn't logging onto the portal part of being a responsible parent? Not necessarily. I mean, think back to your experience in high school. Did your parents know every single quiz and test score? And from my perspective as a parent, I don't think it's healthy for us to know every single quiz and test score, because what we do when we know that right away, when we know what those grades are right away, and we take over, or we confront the kid, or we go to the kid before the kid has even had a chance to talk to the teacher, what are you going to do about this grade? We really co-opt that. Some school systems actually have made it so that grades can't go into the portal until the teacher has had a chance to talk to the student, and I think that's fantastic, because there have been situations that where a kid will get in the car at the end of the day and the parent will say, what happened with that French quiz? And the kid's like, what French quiz? I didn't even know there was a grade yet. So if we could avoid that, that would be fantastic, because having those conversations are some of the most important things we do in our parenting. Now, some schools, and in the book, in Gift of Failure, I talk about one, the headmaster, or might have just been an upper school head at a hoity-toity private school in Massachusetts. One of the hoitiest and toitiest actually said, over my dead body, I will retire before I will open up the portal, because I think it is that destructive to relationships. And here's the other part. It's that destructive to kids' autonomy. Portals are surveillance. Extrinsic motivators can include things like rewards, but they can also include things like surveillance. When you check in on the portal constantly, that's a control called surveillance. When you put a program on your kid's phone that allows you to know where your kid is 24/7 and your kid knows they're being tracked, that's surveillance. And while I'm not saying we can never use these things, I am saying we need to be really, really careful about what we do and how we use these things. Because if you want your kid to be intrinsically motivated, if you want your kid to want to do their schoolwork for the sake of the schoolwork, or if you want your kid to be honest with you, if you want your kid to fess up as to where they've been, your chances of having that happen are better when you don't do surveillance on them. There are studies showing that kids who are more tightly controlled lie to their parents more. While we're on the topic, kids who are lied to by their parents lie more, interestingly. And this makes perfect sense when you talk to teenagers. These teenagers need to feel like they have the chance to stretch and to do what's called individuating, to become separate from us. Teenagers are becoming their own people. They need space to breathe. They need space to have their own stuff. And when we're controlling them, when we're watching the portal, when we're watching them on their phones, they are more likely to lie to us. They're more likely to be secretive with us, and they're less likely to be intrinsically motivated to take care of their own business. So that's a bunch of reasons that I'm not a fan of the portal. It undermines parent-child relationships. It undermines parent-teacher relationships. It undermines, but can strengthen, if used properly, student teacher relationships. If the student is using it and using it as a way to get information about their own grades, then it can be a great way for students and teachers to talk to each other. But when we're taking over and we're checking the portal and we're going to the teacher, then it's breaking down student-teacher relationships. It is a form of control. It reduces kids' feeling of autonomy. Let's see what else. And it just makes us crazy. I wrote an article for the New York Times last fall called "The Downside of Checking Kids' Grades Constantly," and I cite some research and talk about some schools that are doing a really good job of handling the portal. Again, mainly I'm talking about high-pressure school systems. There was a study showing that at a school system where they were trying to get parents involved, where they had a lower level of parent involvement, that the portal could be helpful. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about are high-pressure school systems where parents are already pretty involved and are getting obsessed with the portal. So whether the school systems that are using the portal as a way to draw parents in and make them feel welcome, those are school systems that are training parents on using the portal. Those are school systems that are doing bilingual education on helping parents access the portal if their English is not strong. These are school systems that are doing it right, and it is having some great benefits. But again, what I'm mainly talking about are schools where there's a lot of pressure, where parents feel a lot of pressure to be checking all the time, and where they have been checking all the time anyway. And before the dogs take over and here they come through the door, I want to finish up. So if all of these things are true, if it undermines relationships, if it undermines autonomy, if it makes kids feel like there's surveillance going on, if it makes them lie to us more, let's log off. Let's log on less. I talk in an article I wrote for The Atlantic called "Why I Don't Check on My Son's Grade 10 times a day or 7 times a day or whatever." I talked about the option of saying to your kid, look, it's Monday. I'm going to check it on Friday. You check it on Monday. I'll check it with you on Friday, and on Friday we'll have a great conversation about whatever is going on with you. But in the meantime, this is your responsibility. So you have until Friday to have all these... Give me the squeaky toy. Got it. To have all these important conversations with your teachers about the portal and what's there and what's not there. And then on Friday, this can be a really constructive conversation, and there will be no surprises. Or you can just throw the password and the ID away. When it came in the mail, when my kid was a freshman in high school, I handed it back to him and I said, no, we'll be having these conversations. I'm not going to be getting information from the computer. I trust you. I trust you to talk to me. This is always open to change. If I find out that things are circling the drain at school and you're not talking to me, then I might feel the need to log on, but I'm going to err on the side of trust, and I'm going to err on the side of conversation. So if you're feeling like the portal is taking over your life, if your kid feels like the portal is maybe taking over their life, have these conversations with your kid. Ask them what they think about the portal. Ask them what they think about you checking the portal. And if you do decide to log off yourself and not go on there, do have a conversation with your kids' teachers. Send them an email, have a meeting, say, I'm logging off. I'm going to put some faith in my kid and some faith in the relationship you have with my kid. And if anything changes and I need to be logging on, will you please let me know about that? Because I won't be in. And if my kid doesn't tell me, then I'm going to need to rely on you to communicate with me. Pick up the phone, send me an email. And I trust you. You're a part of educating my child, and I'm going to leave you to do your job until I hear otherwise. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. The portal, the people who make the portals, they're not my biggest fan. They know I have a problem with it, but I think the evidence on extrinsic motivators is really clear. The evidence on what ruins our relationships with our children is pretty clear. The evidence on deceit is pretty clear. I think it's time to give the portal a rest. I have, and I hope you'll at least try it and see what happens. See if maybe it allows you to chill a little bit. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening to these frequently asked questions. I'm going to be emailing all of the people who asked this particular question to let them know that I have answered their question and this is up. There are a whole bunch of other questions I've answered. As I said, this is episode 8, so there's 7 other questions I've answered. And if you like this, please feel free to tweet about it. Feel free to put them on Facebook. Thank you again to Grown and Flown, one of my favorite parent discussion groups on Facebook. Grown and Flown, it's fantastic. It's for parenting older children. Thank you, Grown and Flown, for putting up these videos on your website. It's just been a fantastic way to get some new viewers. So thank you so much. You can always find me at jessicalahey.com. And you can always find me on Twitter at @JessLahey and on Instagram at @TeacherLahey. And keep the questions coming so I can keep those videos coming. And next time I'll just put the dogs out first thing. Thanks so much. Next time. Bye.